things today, and they should apply to you whether or not you're in B2B, B2C, mobile only, and whether or not you've done retargeting in the past, or if retargeting would be something that's totally new to you. Hopefully this presentation is going to be valuable. As she said, I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So if I talk about a term, or if I bring something up that's confusing or it's not making much sense, feel free to interrupt me and ask questions using the chat box. So what do I want you guys to get out of today? The number one most important thing is marketing is math. Marketing is all about making sure that you are buying your customers at the right price, and that you're making a positive ROI on buying those customers. And because marketing is math, I believe that every company should be using retargeting or remarketing as part of their user acquisition strategy. I also think that because of that, or not because of that, the good news is that since I think it should be since it should be something that everybody is doing, that the good news is retargeting is really easy to start and manage, and it doesn't take up a lot of time or resources to get things going. We're going to start by talking about marketing as math, and I'm going to focus there for a little bit before we get into the retargeting and remarketing piece. And the reason why I want to do that is the reason why retargeting makes so much sense is because of the metrics and how the math plays out with retargeting. And so when we talk about marketing is math, we really talk about your CPA. It's all about hitting your CPA. And what is your CPA? It's your cost per acquired customer. So how much does it cost for you to acquire a new customer, or even to reacquire a current customer? But it's that amount that it costs to acquire the customer. How do you figure out what your target CPA should be? It depends on what information you have and what you know. So if you know your revenue per acquired customer, how much somebody is going to spend once you acquire them as a customer, then you're probably a retailer, and ROAS is the right driver. And different retailers have different ROAS targets, but it could range anywhere from a 2 to 10 to, I've had some retailers where their target is a 20 ROAS. The key there is if you are below 1 with your ROAS, that you are losing money on your customers. And so using ROAS is a good starting point if you have the revenue side of the equation. Using ROAS is a good place to start. If you don't know your revenue explicitly, there's lots of different ways that you can estimate it. You can estimate it by just looking at the lifetime value of a customer. You can estimate it by just what your expected revenue that you get per transaction is. You can get it in a bunch of different ways. And if you're still at a loss, just take an educated guess. Think about your business. Is your product something that costs, $150 when somebody buys, or is it something that costs $10? Well, if it costs $10, then that means you're probably going to have a lower CPA target than if it costs $150. You can have a $100 CPA target, right? So it really is unique to your business and what you're trying to accomplish in your marketing goals. The higher your CPA target, the more flexibility you'll have in generating customers, because you'll be able to pay more for the media. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. I want to pause here just for a moment and just see if anybody has any questions, or I think there's one question there about Hult, and I can't comment on that, but if there are questions about the content, feel free to jump in and ask any questions. So this is what you're looking at now in front of you is the math behind marketing. And you can see at the far end, I've got I've got ROAS, which is made up of your RPA and your CPA. Your RPA is your revenue per acquired customer. And your CPA, obviously, we just talked about, is your cost per acquired customer. The CPA is based on your cost per click. That's CPC, cost per click. And CVR, that's your conversion rate. I see somebody has a great question. If you provide a service, how would you calculate your CPA? If your service is a revenue generating service, or if it's something that has a service where it's a regular fee, I would say if it's a transactional service, you can still price it. You'd still look at CPA the same way. If it's something with a regular fee that is charged over time for the service, then I would look at more the lifetime value of the customer, and that's how I would calculate the CPA. And if you provide a service where you don't get any revenue, then your CPA is going to be based on what if you're a nonprofit or something like that, it's going to be based on whatever your nonprofit goals are and what you're trying to achieve. We can talk a little bit more. At the end of the presentation. I can go into a little bit more detail about how I would think about that. But just because you're providing a service as opposed to a product shouldn't matter in terms of what your cost per acquired customer is. And so, going back, you've got three big numbers that we're going to talk about here. So we've got CVR right here. That's your conversion rate. That's for every person that clicks on your ad, how many of those people are actually going to convert to a customer. We've got CPC, and that is the cost per click. Your cost per click is going to be based on, it could be based on a couple different things. So sometimes you can actually bid on a cost per click basis. So you can establish your cost per click. If you know what your target CPA is, and you know what your conversion rate should be, then you might want to bid on a CPC basis with wherever you're doing your marketing. The next thing I want to talk about is CTR. That is click-through rate. So that is for everybody that sees your ad, how many people click on the ad. Oftentimes what you're going to be doing is bidding on an eCPM basis, and that's cost per million impression or 1,000 impressions. And so a lot of times, whether you're using Google or you're using Facebook, you'll probably start off by bidding on an eCPM basis. And when people think about sort of different markets and different, somebody asked, what is the average CPA in the cosmetics industry for a mid-valued brand? What tends to be more the case is that the eCPM in the cosmetic industry, how much it costs for you to actually acquire an impression, is probably going to be more the standard. The average CPA in the cosmetics industry, I'm guessing if your average sale price in cosmetics is $15, right? And you're looking at it as a transactional basis rather than somebody's going to continue to come back over and over again. You're probably looking at a CPA of $5 that you'd be shooting for would be my guess. It depends on the region. There's a lot of dependencies. And then so you're bidding on an eCPM, but when you set your bid, for most of the exchanges where you're setting your bid, the bid is going to come, there's going to be the bid that you set, and then there's going to be the bid that, or the price that you actually pay to get your eCPM. And so part of it is gonna, when you have your CBR, CPC, CTR figured out, then you can start working on making sure you're managing your bids appropriately. But the way that I think about this page is the numbers that you need to focus on are on the left side of the page, and they flow through to the right. So you can't really focus on your CTR and improving your CTR unless you really know what your CPC and your conversion rate is. You can't really focus on your CPC. Oh, CTR is click-through rate. So it's the click-through rate is the rate at which people click on your ad that they see. So a typical CTR is 1%. 1% of the people that see the ad will click on the actual ad. Conversion rate is going to be probably higher. You're looking at, you could have a conversion rate of 2, 5, 10, 20% sometimes. And that's the number of people that convert to you're actually being a customer. The CTR is just the number of people that see your ad, whether it's on Facebook or Google or through any other of the exchanges on different publisher websites. It's the amount of people that see the ad and actually click on it, and it's a percentage. CBR and CTR are both percentages. So what I want to talk through next, so just really quickly, is how you optimize these things. Whoops. How you optimize these things. And so when we talk about CVR, CTR, CPC, and ECPM, all these different acronyms, the thing is that you can change them. And this is where the marketing is math comes into play. So your conversion rate is not set. If your conversion rate is 2% today, you can do things that can improve your conversion rate. If your click-through rate is not high enough, you can do things to improve your click-through rate. If your CPC is too high, you can do things. And a lot of those things are gonna be in the platform that you're working with. You'll have the opportunity to impact a few different things. And so I'll just talk briefly about what these things are. So frequency, that's the number of times somebody sees an ad. So do you want somebody to see an ad at most 10 times? Do you want them to see the ad at most 50 times, 100 times? How many times do you want them to be to see your ad? Recency deals specifically with retargeting. That's why I have it here. It's one of the biggest drivers. So how recent do you want somebody to be considered a retargeted person? Do you want to only retarget people that you saw a day ago, or do you want to retarget people that you saw on your site a month ago? The final thing is your bid, or the third thing is your bid. That's how much you're actually saying that you're willing to pay, whether it's on a CPC basis or an ECPM basis. C stands for click. Yes. Well, C stands for cost and click. In conversion rate, it's CVR is just what in the sort of the industry term for conversion rate. CPC is cost per click. CTR is click through rate, and ECPM is effective cost per milli is what that actually stands for, but cost, I look at the M is really an impression, so cost per 1,000 impressions. One final note on levers that you have. These are the sort of big levers. The first three are pretty big levers that you have to pull to adjust your campaign. The last one around additional targeting, time of day, things like that, you really want to focus on that after you've gotten your basic numbers figured out. So you want to change time of day by, say, for instance, you don't think that people are going to be looking to purchase your product, and let me just type in the messages here. the different definitions. So CPA is cost per acquired customer. CVR, conversion rate, which is number of purchasers over number of clicks. CPC is cost per click. CTR is click through rate. Specific regions. There's another question that just came in here real quick. What about placements in geographic locations? More specifically, targeting specific regions. Yes, exactly. So when you set up your campaign, that'll be one of the things that you are setting up. That'll just be part of the setup is your geo targeting. You can narrow your geo targeting down to zip code, city, state. You can get pretty narrow with your geo targeting. And yeah, so that's definitely something that you would look at for additional targeting. Want to erase these real quick so we can go on to the next page. And then I don't think I put on there what eCPM was. So eCPM, cost per 1,000 impressions. All right. Thanks for all these questions. I'm glad these questions are coming in. Keep on sending them as they pop up. So that's a little bit about how marketing is math and sort of sets the foundation for why retargeting is good. Another question just came in. Would bid adjustments on geo-targeting be a means to lower your CPC? Of course, if you have the data, the bid adjustments on the specific locations. Yes, absolutely. So your bid adjustment is really when you place in your bid, it's really getting to your eCPM, and your eCPM is going to possibly lower your CPC. One thing to keep in mind about that, though, is that just because you have a lower bid doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily end up with a lower CPC. And the reason why is because when you're bidding for placements, and other people are bidding against you for those placements. And so what you might end up doing if you lower your bid too much is you might only get the less desirable placements. And those less desirable placements could have a lower CTR. So even though you've lowered your bid and you've lowered your eCPM, you also could lower your CTR, therefore not actually lowering your CPC. So it's I look at managing this as a bit of an art and a science, and so it's all of these different pieces that you see on this page work together in conjunction with one another. They don't operate in a vacuum by themselves. So you could go and bid on low CPC traffic. That question that you asked was actually a fantastic question. You could go bid on low CPC traffic, but that could also drive your conversion rate lower. You might have to pay high CPCs to get the conversion rate that you need to make it make sense. It's sort of like finding the right equilibrium. It's about finding the right equilibrium of your CPC and your conversion rate and your CTR. And so what marketing oftentimes is a lot of iteration, testing and iterating, trying different, geo-targeting, trying different time targeting, trying different recency frequency, trying different bids, like what happens if you bid $100 a click or $100 eCPM, does does that give you placements with an incredibly high CTR? And so you're trying to make sure that you get the right placements for your product. And so that's why this is why retargeting is so valuable, and why it ends up, and why I think everybody should be doing retargeting with all of their campaigns. And so what retargeting or remarketing, you're re-engaging users after they've already basically raised their hand, right? It could be that they visited your website, they searched for your product, they downloaded an app. There could be tons of different ways that you know that this person has already expressed an interest in your product. And so these people, if you think about that then, and you go back to the previous page, that's going to directly impact because you know that they've already visited your site. You know they're more interested than the average person on the street, the average person that you could be targeting. And so in theory, what this should be doing is increasing your CTR and your conversion rate. You're going after people who you know have intent. They have interest in your product. And so those are the people that you want to go after and make sure that you're capturing. If somebody came to your website and they put something in let's say that you're an e-commerce site, and somebody put something in a cart and they didn't end up buying, you want to find that person on the internet again and show them that product and say, hey, come back and purchase. Come back and purchase this product. And that's where your CTR and your conversion rate are going to be much higher because you know that that person at least has shown some interest. Whereas if you're just advertising to 18 to 45-year-old males that live in the U.S., like you have no idea if they're interested in your product. They're just your target market, but you have no idea if they're interested in your product. And so retargeting is really about making sure that you're taking advantage of that sort of first-party data that you have, that information that you have about somebody coming to visit your site or having somehow engaged with your product. Maybe they used a trial of your product or something like that. And so that's why it's so effective, and it should be such an important part of anybody's marketing mix. And so here's an example. I like to, in every presentation I give, show a picture of my son because he's cute, and I think it makes people like me better. So there's my son right here, full of cuteness. There's my wife, also full of cuteness. And you can see that we were trying to make our holiday card to send out for the year. And we started building it, and then we left the site, and we didn't complete building the holiday card. And so you can see right here, I'm on Facebook, and Tiny Prints, where we were building the card, is advertising to me saying, hey, you can get 30% off all your holiday cards during this sale. Come back to us. And finish your order, right? So Tiny Prints isn't just advertising to everybody. They're advertising to me. They know it's me that they're advertising to, and they know that I have a card that I haven't finished, right? That is that's going to be a super effective ad for them. They're going to get a higher click-through rate. They're going to get a higher conversion rate because they know I've already expressed that interest. Does that make sense about why retargeting is valuable, and why retargeting is valuable, and why it ends up impacting the math in such a positive way for you? Great. So now let's talk a little bit about how do you actually do retargeting. I want to make this practical for folks and leave you with some tools and ideas about how to get started. And so there are really four big players. There are really two big players when it comes to remarketing and retargeting. You're going to be advertising on Google, and you're going to be advertising on Facebook. To actually do the launch, it's really simple. You're gonna place some pixels on your site, like a remarketing pixel, a conversion pixel. You can use Google Tag Manager. The easiest thing is you can go call up Criteo or AdRoll, and they'll do a retargeting campaign for you and manage everything for you, and take a 10% fee. So you can do it by yourself and save the 10% fee. But if you are stretched resource-wise, oh, pixel. What do I mean by pixel? Yes. Pixel is a tag, a piece of JavaScript code that you place on your site. So that's how you're able to tell if somebody has visited the site, is through these JavaScript pieces of code that you're placing on the site. It's a very small piece of code. It's like one line of code, really easy to add to your site. Your engineer or product or tech person should be able to do it very quickly and easily. They'll know what it is. But again, I'm gonna walk you through how you would do it by yourself with Facebook. With AdRoll and Criteo, they'll give you step-by-step instructions for how to be able to put this piece of code on your site. And that's what I mean by pixel, is a piece of code that you're putting on your site. Then finally, you can use LiveRamp. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up LiveRamp. Since I currently work at LiveRamp, we onboard people's first-party data, your CRM data, which enables you to do retargeting as well. And so we tend to work with very large companies. Criteo and AdRoll work with companies of all sorts of sizes. And AdRoll actually specifically specializes in small and medium businesses. Criteo is more global than AdRoll is. They're based in Europe. AdRoll is based in the US. Criteo has offices all around the globe. AdRoll less so. So those are your options for who to work with. Now, let's talk about actually building a campaign on Facebook. And one of the things to remember with Facebook is the news feed. So if you're going to be doing retargeting on Facebook, that means that you're going to be showing something, an ad of something that they've already engaged with, and so you're going to want to use the news feed. The news feed is super high engagement. The click-through rates that you see there are probably going to be 5 times what you would find in another channel, even on the right-hand column in Facebook. So try to leverage the news feed as much as possible when you launch your Facebook retargeting campaign. And let's talk about launching that Facebook retargeting campaign. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into Facebook Business Manager, and you'll have to set up a business account, and you're going to create an audience. And that audience that you're going to create is going to be through either your CRM data. It can be through the website traffic. That's where the pixels, the JavaScript code comes into play. App activity. They expand this. I believe this is even expanded even more beyond the engagement on Facebook with your content too. There's lots of different ways that you can define your retargeted audience. And so you start by, let's say we're going to start with just with website traffic. So Facebook's going to give me step-by-step instructions for how I can actually launch this campaign for my website traffic. So we're going to look at that real quick. And so here we go. We're going to do website traffic, and now we get to decide how we want to, who on our website we care about. Do we care about anybody? Do we care about people that visit specific pages on your website? Do we want to exclude certain pages? Do we want to reach out to people that haven't visited your website in a very long time? There's lots of different ways for you to define who it is that you want to go after when you're building out your campaign. And so what you're going to see here is Facebook is just going to walk you through. Facebook is just going to walk you through how to do this very simply, and that's why I want to. I said at the beginning I wanted to make sure that folks got out of this three things. Marketing is math. Everybody should be doing retargeting, and the third one is it's really easy to do. And what this should be showing you is that anybody can go into Facebook and launch a retargeting campaign very quickly and easy, and Facebook walks you through it. So let's say you've got that retargeting campaign set up, right? So and there's more steps to this. I didn't want to go through all the detailed steps, but I wanted to at least make sure people saw that it's very easy to go into Facebook and set up this retargeting campaign. Now, once you get your retargeting campaign set up, what are you going to? How do you optimize that campaign? How do you manage that campaign? And so, the keys here are defining your performance, thinking about the creative and the complexity of your program. And so, when I say define your performance metrics, before while it's easy to set up a Facebook retargeting campaign, before you set up that campaign, you'll want to make sure that you're very clear in your mind about what those CPA, ROAS, whatever your cost per click, whatever metrics that you feel most confident in that we discussed at the beginning. You want to make sure that you have clear goals in mind before you set up the campaign, because as we talked about, there's a lot of iterating and trial and error and learning that goes on with launching these campaigns. And so you need to have a starting point. The next thing is you need to think about, who is your customer? Who are you going after? Where are those people? Where can you find those people? What are those people interested in? And make sure you're going after the right customer. The next thing, and this can get a little bit complicated, is attribution. So it's in the ad tech world. There's a lot of talk nowadays about attribution and how people do attribution. Historically, in ad tech, we've looked at things as a post-click world. So we how many people, not based on how many people saw the ad, but based on how many people that clicked on the ad. What is your do you attribute those people back to this campaign? See here, there's a new question that came in. Is it bad to set up a retargeting campaign that goes back up to 580 days? We do it in our company. It's been very successful, but I've been wondering if retargeting a more recent time frame will lower our costs and still maintain the same success. 580 days is a lot of days, but I don't know what can you tell me what business what industry that's in? 580 days is definitely a lot of days. If you've had success, consumer goods, got it. So, depends on so I could see in the toy sector where there could be value in having a longer time frame. What I would actually do, and this is where Facebook and Google and AdRoll and Criteo make it very, very simple, is I would actually set up different campaigns. I would look at the campaign for somebody that's at 3 months or 6 months as different than the campaign for somebody that's been a year and a half. I would want to pay different amounts. I would expect there to be a different conversion rate and a different CTR. And the more you can segment it, the more you're able to, the more you segment it, the more you're able to optimize within those different segments. Yes, sorry. Somebody wants me to go back to the page on Google, Facebook, and the different vendors. The key piece here on the vendors is Criteo and AdRoll are going to be your sort of outsource shops for this stuff, and Google and Facebook are places you're going to go directly. if you want to do it directly. With Criteo and AdRoll, you're going to have to pay a 10% fee, and it might be worth it to pay that 10% fee because you're resource constrained. And so, got it. So yeah. So there's another question here on any tips how to narrow our retargeting audience, how to segment who we should retarget, not. Yes. So there's a lot of the first way that I start segmenting my retargeting audiences is by time frame. And so we would actually set up campaigns where we had retargeting for people that visited the site in 1 day ago, 3 days ago, 10 days ago, 30 days ago, 60 days ago. We treated all of them. This is going back to that other question about the consumer goods toy sector, right? Like, try to segment it. I start by segmenting it by time, and then you might decide by segmenting it by time that you can make it work for 3 days and 5 days, but you're not able to make it work for 1 day. And so you pull out that 1 day, the 1 day retargeting campaign, and you don't retarget people that have been there 1 day ago. You wait until they've been there 3 days ago. You can also do suppression if they've purchased. So you can, if you remember when we were setting up the custom audiences with Facebook, we had the opportunity to not just target people that have come to the website, but to also not target certain people that have come to the website. And so you might be able to add in a list of people that have purchased products recently. And you don't want to retarget those people. They've come to your site, but they've already made a purchase. And so you don't want to target those people. I think another way to think about retargeting and narrowing who you're targeting versus not is like we talked about earlier, geography, time of day, certain products. So if you are a retailer, and so let's say you are that consumer goods in the toy sector, and let's say you've got let's say you've got 100 products in your product portfolio, you might decide that your products that cost $10 or less, you don't want to do retargeting for those. You don't want to focus on retargeting for those products because it's going to cost you too much to acquire a customer, and it doesn't make sense to go after those products. And you only do the toys. That are $10 or more. What I would actually recommend you do is you segment your audience by the product type as well. So it's a very easy, simple way to segment the product type is just by how much the product costs. Is it possible to get social demographic data from visitors using Facebook audience? Yes, it is. That's very powerful data. So you can layer that onto your custom audiences and target not just retarget visitors to your site, but retarget visitors to your site that fit a certain demographic profile. I want to talk a little bit about creative and landing pages. And so because when you're doing retargeting, you're advertising to people that have seen your product, the creative associated with the product is actually pretty important. You want to make sure that, so for instance, if you're a travel company, you want to make sure that you have a great picture of your hotel, or if you're a hotel company, you want to make sure you have a great picture of the hotel that the person visited. If you are a consumer goods company, you want to make sure that you have a really clear, crisp picture of the product that they saw, that puts it in the best light. You want to make sure that you have the right ad copy associated with it. When we looked at that picture, we looked at that ad that Tiny Prince had sent, or Tiny Prince had showed me, you saw that they had a 30% deal. So you want to try and test different ad copies. Maybe try 30% off your purchase. Try free shipping with your purchase. You could, it doesn't have to be offering any sort of deal. It could be just changing the copy to time is running out, buy your card today. But you're going to want to try different ad copies. You're going to want to try different ad copies with different images. The difference in an image, especially with expensive items like travel or jewelry or you know, anything that's $100+ like the picture itself is really important, and how that picture is displayed is incredibly important. We see a big difference in the click-through rate and the conversion rate just based on the copy and the actual creative. And then finally, think about how complicated your program needs to be. Do you need to do dynamic retargeting? So the Tiny Prince ad that I showed everybody, that wasn't dynamic retargeting. That was just retargeting. That was just retargeting me, but they didn't have a picture of my card that I was building or anything like that. A dynamic retargeting is going to be important if you have lots of products. You're going to want to be able to show people the exact product that they looked at. So, you know, I've worked with retailers with, you know, millions and millions of products. And so they connect their product feed to Facebook. Excuse me, they connect their product feed to Facebook, and they have a different ad for each product that somebody looks at. And so if you have, you know, 100 products, 1,000 products, you know, at that point it starts to make sense to think about things on a dynamic basis. And again, Facebook, Google, AdRoll, Criteo, they can all help you figure that out. It make it very simple for you to connect your product feed to them. If you have a service that you have one service, one product that you're selling, no need to be dynamic. Focus your time and effort on different images and different copy and creative. One final thing that I wanted to touch on is sort of where things are going in the future, and what folks are talking about in the space. And right now, one of the big things is the state of cookie-based advertising. So we're moving less and less. We're moving more and more away from using cookies to actually advertising to people and custom audiences. And so those pixels that we talked about placing, that piece of Java code, those pixels that you're placing are going to help a little bit. But what people are focused more and more on doing now is actually advertising to people as opposed to pixels, and getting a good identity resolution provider. The next thing is attribution challenges. You know, when we talk about CPA, it's about making sure we attribute the transaction to the right marketing campaign. And now in a cross-device world where people are doing searches on their phone and then making purchases on their desktop, or doing the opposite, doing searches on their desktop, making purchases on their phone, or making purchases in an app after doing searches on the internet. It's harder and harder to figure out how to attribute a different, you know, a transaction or a purchase to the general. Sorry, it's hard to attribute. It's harder and harder to attribute, you know, where that transaction came from, and how to decide if it came from campaign A, B, or C. And so what you're looking for is really your total CPA, and you want to come up with a consistent method by which you're determining the attribution. So however you decide to do attribution, just make it consistent. If you do it post-click, and that's your attribution approach, then it's always going to then make it always post-click. It's just got to be the same from campaign to campaign. What's the general difference in cost from usual targeting to dynamic retargeting? The difference in cost is not significant. It's a difference in how hard it is to manage the campaign. That's really what the difference is. It's a lot harder to manage. It's a lot harder and more complex to manage a dynamic retargeting campaign than it is to manage just a regular retargeting campaign that's not dynamic. So it's not so much a cost difference as it is a work, effort, and resource difference. So that's all I have today. Looks like we've got 10 minutes for any other questions. You guys have asked really great questions throughout the presentation. So I don't know if there are other questions out there, but we do have 10 minutes if there are any other questions out there. And I believe this presentation is going to be made available to folks afterwards.
Yes, we are recording this presentation, so we will be sending the link of the presentation to everybody who attended.
Great, great.
Yeah, as John mentioned, we still have 10 minutes. So in case there's any additional questions you guys want to ask, please put it in the chat box. Let's wait a few more minutes just to see if everybody has any questions. Okay, there are a couple of questions.
Can I touch on the success of retargeting on Twitter? I hate to naysay a platform, but retargeting on Twitter is not. I have not found people to have the same amount of success that they've had on Facebook and Google with retargeting. I think Twitter still has a lot of work to do on their ad platform, and you know, part of it is it's not as easy to use. The other part of it is it's hard to figure out what the right sort of copy and message and creative should be for Twitter. So I think Twitter's having a hard time figuring it out. Got it. You do. That's what I thought. It was worth giving it a try, in your opinion. If you're having success, if you are having success on Facebook and AdWords, I would try Twitter. It doesn't hurt to try it. I would just allocate a small test budget. That being said, if it's working really well on Facebook and AdWords, I would try to figure out how to get more out of Facebook and AdWords. You know, just when you think that there's not much more that you can get out of Facebook, like after, you know, doing a couple more tests, you find that there's still a little bit more that you could get. Somebody had a general question. How should we test the myriad of demo targeting options on Facebook? That's a great question. So Facebook can be overwhelming with the demographic targeting options that they offer. I tend to think that you want to start off with, you know, a few high-level buckets, and then narrow down from there. So, you know, start with people that are interested in finance, or interested in credit cards, and then after you see if that works and what your eCPM, and what you'll find is those demographics are going to have the same eCPM. So, you know, the eCPM for the finance demographic in the US is going to be the same, roughly the same for everybody. And so it's all about optimizing your click-through rate and your conversion rate. Another question here. Is there any experience to share for digital marketing of a restaurant business, except discounts for meals? What else messages could be sent to customers? You know, have you tried email campaigns? In terms of the messaging, you know, one of the things that I find is it's helpful to just sit down, take a half hour, and come up with, and force yourself to do this. Come up with 50 different messages that you think you want to convey. And when I say 50 different messages that you want to convey, it's the wording within the message matters. So, you know, whether you use, you know, third person or first person, or whether you use present tense or past tense, things like that, right, are things to consider when you're coming up with messages to test with different customers. Have I seen any issues, differences on performance from an international perspective, i.e. privacy laws in Europe affecting limiting and targeting performance? That's a tough question because the privacy laws are changing so much right now, especially in Europe. And so it used to be that there wasn't as much of an impact, but now it seems like there's more of an impact with the privacy laws affecting the ability to do retargeting. A lot of my experience over the past year or so has been in the US. And even in the US, the privacy laws are starting to impact people's ability to do retargeting. And you're right, developing messages that trigger an individual's curiosity is a good, getting them interested, getting them to want to click. Click here to find your offer. Click here to tell them exactly what you want them to do. That's what your message should be. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. Click on this ad. It's a great term to use. One of the questions that I get that nobody has asked is, does this work for B2B? It does, and LinkedIn is a great source for B2B retargeting. This isn't just for B2C companies. B2B companies also can do retargeting, albeit it's a different level. Albeit at it's a different level, but it's still a successful tool that you can use. Can you speak about advertising on Instagram? I can't speak to much advertising on Instagram. I think Instagram is still figuring out their DR platform. I think it's still a good place for brands, but I think they're still figuring out their DR platform. It's not quite what you get from Facebook. The performance is not quite what you get from Facebook. Oh, DR platform, sorry. DR is direct marketing, direct response marketing. So branding is, less about people clicking through and the marketing is math, and direct response is about marketing is math. I can be contacted for further questions. Is it okay for me to leave my email address here?
Yes, sure.
Okay. That's my email address, jhamilton2005@gmail.com. It's a bit of a busy time during the holidays, so if I don't get back to you right away, I apologize. But I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
I think the last slide also has address. I think the next slide.
Yes. Thank you. Oh yeah, and there it is. jhamilton2005@gmail.com. So I hope this was helpful for folks, and that the people got something out of this. And just remember the three things: marketing is math, and everybody should be doing retargeting, and retargeting is easy to do. So everybody should be doing it. With that, thanks very much, everybody. It was a pleasure to give this presentation to you.
Thank you, John, so much. I just wanted to let everybody know that at Hult we have guests such as John to come to our global campuses to speak about a certain topic and share their practical knowledge with the students. I hope all of you have learned something new today that you could actually perhaps implement right away on your current positions. And as mentioned, we will be sharing this recording of this webinar today to all of you via email later on. Thank you everybody for joining us today from all around the world, and thank you John especially for sharing your insights today on digital marketing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good day, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.